It's Monday, and welcome back to the Joust About Careers podcast. This is the place to learn about careers from the people who are actually doing the work every day. I'm your host, Ryan Brott, and my guest today is Ryan Harmon, a 2002 Van Buren graduate who is a critical care ER nurse and paramedic who is currently studying to become a nurse practitioner. Ryan shares how a typical day looks in the emergency room, how he became a flight nurse and what that means, how the military helped him choose his career path, and much more. Whether you are interested in a healthcare career or are still exploring your options, I hope that what Ryan shares today will help all of you make better career decisions and have fulfilling career journeys. Enjoy the show. Welcome back to this latest episode of the Joust About Careers podcast. And today we have 2002 Van Buren graduate Ryan Harmon with us, and he's going to be talking about his career as a nurse and EMT. And he has done a ton and had a lot of experiences, and I think we have a lot to learn from him. So Ryan, thank you very much for joining us today. And right now, you are working at Mercy Health Cincinnati. You're also working at Cincinnati Children's Hospital. So you're an ER nurse. You're a clinical care coordinator. What does a typical day look like for you in your current positions?
I mean, it's as an ER nurse, it's just kind of doing. I mean, heck, it can be anything daily. I mean, that comes in, and for the last few months, I've been over at Cincinnati Children's as an ER nurse, and really here the last few months, been significantly busy with kids, the illness, everything going back to school, in between just respiratory illness, and then a lot of the mental health issues that go on with kids. And so normally, I mean, it's 12-hour shifts that we work for the ER, and there's so many varieties of shifts that you can work, day shifts, mid shifts, night shifts, but normally for like the ER, they're 12-hour shifts. But it's just kind of that you come in, you get your assignment, and go about the day. And I mean, it can be a variety of things. And sometimes we kind of say that there's a topic or a complaint for the day, because it seems like that is what is, the majority of the complaint, whether it's abdominal pain for that day, or whether it's, difficulty breathing, or sometimes it, with kids, it could be, just foreign bodies in the nose, some things like that. So it's kind of, the daily thing. It's never the same, really.
Right. Now at Cincinnati Children's, are we talking newborn up to a certain age, or how does that typically work?
So yeah, I mean, it can be, newborn all the way up. We'll see them up to their 21st birthday.
Okay.
As far as that's what they consider our kids. And so it can be a variety. Normally we see a lot of the younger population, especially right now with the respiratory season. It's the newborns, really kind of everything 2 years and under is the majority of the kids.
Now, did that take any special training for you to work at a children's hospital, or is the training you received as a nurse, it's meant to cover every age?
Where when they teach nursing, they kind of talk from birth to the grave is kind of a crude way of saying it. And there's a variety of experience there at the ER. There's new grads, there's people that have been there for 20 years, or there's, kind of middle of the road. There's tons of extra courses and certifications that you do. I have a ton of different advanced certifications that's helped. But I mean, they take a variety of people. I would say that doing a lot of advanced certifications that I've done helps me more, to where I guess I'm not as worked up, with kids, because, you get some people that you don't see kids a lot. Like if you work in an adult hospital, or even then kind of, going back to my time as a paramedic, we didn't see kids a whole lot. And so then when you did see kids, it was kind of a big deal. And, some people would get a little anxious about the situation.
Now, I'm sure there's probably not much that makes you anxious anymore because of all of the experiences you've had. So, you've been a flight paramedic and nurse. You've been in New Mexico. You've been in Kansas. Obviously, you've spent time in Ohio. You've been in the military. So, thinking about that time as a flight paramedic and nurse, how did you get started doing that? And are there certain requirements that are needed to be able to do that? And then what have those experiences been like flying, in helicopters and picking people up and taking them to hospitals and so forth?
I mean, like, so I knew, I was thinking back to your class. I think this was one of the first few years that you were there, and we had to do a project for what we wanted to be. And I think back then I wanted to be do computer animation. Of course that changed over the years. And my junior year decided to, junior going into senior year, decided to go into the Navy. I had a lot of guys that I looked up to that had, actually graduated Van Buren as well, went into the Navy, and I primarily wanted to do, firefighting and, work for the Findlay Fire Department. And so I did my time in the military to get the experience, kind of the resume building, that looks good for, future careers. And then got out and started my EMT basic. And, because at the time, the city wasn't hiring. And so again, things to build your resume with. And then really got into that and just found out that I enjoy the medical side of it a lot more than I did kind of like the firefighting aspects. And of course, starting with the EMT basic and really working my way up to, being a paramedic and getting a lot of experience there. And I've always kind of learned just to continually learn, find something new to learn, whether it's, education, certifications, and then becoming a paramedic. There's a lot of cities that you also have to be a firefighter. So that's a requirement. And so then I went and, got my professional firefighter. And so I worked for a few cities that, doing both the firefighting and the paramedic, and, still really, felt that I enjoyed the medical side of it more. And so got into doing critical care transport. And that's usually where you're working with a nurse and an EMT. These are the super sick patients. And really made a lot of connections with, a lot of those people that I worked with. And a lot of them had been paramedics before, and, pushed to, further my education. And I started, then started flying as a paramedic. I know it's really kind of a long road. And, a lot of them told me, he's like, hey, go do your nursing. We do the same job. I just get paid more, and so that's really what pushed me to do my nursing was, while it's kind of the same job and, requirements, that just ultimately you make more. And so being able to kind of still do both jobs. And so that helps, so I did my nursing, got my experience, worked as a nurse in the ER, then went back and flew. And so it was really nice, is because having the understanding of both sides of, both nurse and paramedic, because that's normally the combination you see a lot of helicopters fly with. It's either nurse or it's nurse paramedic. And the kind of reason behind that is paramedics bring a lot of the pre-hospital experience and knowledge, like the 911s, the scenes, the car accidents, whereas, a nurse brings the hospital kind of stuff, the different medications and the different equipment that you kind of see. Right. And, so been doing that for several years, and, finally decided it's time to work on my nurse practitioner, so it's one of those things of never stop learning.
Right. And I think you also are a great example of, there's just so many options in the medical field that you just start somewhere,
Mhm.
and those experiences are going to potentially lead you in other directions. And going back to the Navy with the firefighting, when you left the Navy, were you able to immediately go into the civilian workforce in firefighting, or did it require you? I think you said you went and got your professional firefighters certification. What did that entail, and how long did that take to get that?
So the military's changed a lot. I mean, because gosh, I mean, looking back on it, it's 21 years since, I've been even out of the service. Um, and, back then, a lot of the certification and education that they gave you didn't translate very well into like the civilian world.
Mhm.
Because my job it's called like an aircraft handler, but we also did, aircraft movement, crash and salvage, rescue, firefighting. Um, and there is no real big like certification that they're going to give you right away that translates, because so many different states require different education and training and stuff like that. But anyways, it I think it helped because they look at, okay, one, you're military, and they just look at the military experience, but then they kind of look at what you did, and they say, okay, well, you have this knowledge. Of course, then the benefit of the military too is that they give you college credit for a lot of your education and classes and training that you go through. It's just finding then the right college to accept those credits and kind of translate it into like a degree or something like that. I think just by my training, it helped me more to do the firefighting. I did my professional firefighting through Vanguard up in Fremont.
Okay.
So that's where I did mine. A lot of departments, there's so many different colleges, community colleges that you can do the firefighting through, or some places usually send you like to the state academy.
Your travels in your career, I'd love to hear where you were in the military. And like I said, I know you've been um, out in Kansas, you've been in New Mexico. Does all of that really just prove that if you were in the healthcare field, you could literally go anywhere
Mhm.
and find employment and, make your life whatever you want it to be?
Yes, it does. Because even as a paramedic, and so I really felt that there was more to the career field than just sitting in one place. And so kind of really reaching out and getting the experience. And that's kind of what pulled me out of Findlay, as I came down to Dayton to work at the Air Force Base as, a civilian paramedic. But then I've done contracting, and it kind of even helps with my military experiences. And I kind of got into government contracting. And so doing like the overseas contracts. So I've been to different countries as a paramedic working for the military, for the government. And then even with, healthcare. Yeah. So I did the travel nursing, and I worked for a company called Air Methods. And the one nice thing about them is that if you had the certification and the license for that, that base, that state, they would literally fly you there, and you could work. And they would also then like reimburse you. They pay for all the expenses. And so I've worked in, oh gosh, New York. I've worked in Florida, Tennessee, Kentucky, Michigan, Ohio, yeah, Kansas. Anywhere that they had a base, you could go to. And it's the same way with healthcare. Like daily, I get emails or phone calls from recruiters saying, "Come here, we'll give you this much money." It's kind of one of those things of, where do you want to go? What do you want to do? And because, like you said earlier, is that there's so much specialties and different things that you can get into if you want to really enjoy it. I enjoy emergency room, but they'll pay for you to go there.
Right. And yeah, I mean, I heard about during COVID, the travel nursing. I mean, how lucrative that could be if people were willing to move. And again, I think anything in healthcare can be very lucrative if you're willing to go do that. Myself, I can't handle blood, so
Mhm.
I will not be doing that. But yeah, if you have those skills and abilities, like you said, you have all kinds of certifications. You're currently working on a master's degree to be a nurse practitioner. You have a degree in business administration and healthcare administration and management. You've done the nurse, you've done the flights, you've done the military. Is there one thing that jumps out? And I guess you maybe answered it when you said the ER. Um, so is there one position that you've found to be especially engaging and you've enjoyed more than others? And if it is the ER nursing, what makes that so enjoyable?
I think because like I enjoy the ER and then even flying, but like with flying, it's usually like the pinnacle for a lot of nurses, and I think that's what I talk to most people about is how do I get into flying as a nurse. And I mean, it's a great job. It's a great, I mean, I've made so many friends doing it. It's never the same thing, and that's kind of even how it is in the ER, is that you can go from being slow 1 minute to completely slammed. It's never the same every day. I like going through clinicals for nursing, the one thing that it taught me, like through the different departments, is really just the departments that I didn't want to work in. While it gives you the experience and shows you all the different departments that you can work in and the specialties and stuff like that, I really kind of felt that it was more or less kind of like a trial of each individual place. So then you kind of find the one that really sticks for you. And sometimes it's even just your personality, is what drives you to the different specialties. But I I like having my patient for a little while, fixing them up, and then sending them off.
Yeah, it has to feel good, especially when you're slammed and you can fix people, get them out the door, and be
Mm.
ready for the next one. So when it comes to the flying nursing, I'm assuming, yes, people are going to need some experience in nursing before they are accepted into doing that. Uh, I live close to 75. I see LifeFlight fly over my house, once or twice a week. How much are you actually in the air on a typical day? And again, maybe there's not a typical day, but maybe a typical week. And how much time is more on the ground doing things? What's the ratio there, air versus ground?
I mean, it's kind of a mixture. I mean, so I worked for Mercy LifeFlight up there, and so I was between Toledo and Bluffton, and both those bases are a little bit different. Bluffton, you don't have. I think they may have a truck now, but a lot of places now are kind of going to having an ambulance and a truck, because weather comes in and stuff like that. And days are different. Some places do 12-hour shifts, some places do 24-hour shifts. I mean, so anywhere from working just 2 days a week to working 3 days a week. And so I mean, it's really like a combination of busyness. So like when I was in Toledo, we did more ground transports because everything is so close. And you could do anywhere from 3 to 4 trips within 24 hours. The most I've done in 24 hours, I've done 6 flights in 24 hours, and you're kind of really you know really working, because it's not just the flying part, it's all the paperwork that you have to do, the charting, all of restocking equipment, cleaning up. So there's a lot more that goes into it. It's usually um, you know several hours that you may have a 10 minutes with that patient, if you're that close to the hospital. But then you have an hour of charting, another hour of cleaning up. So
Right.
but it's really hit or miss. Some bases are busy. Most They can range anywhere from 30 flights, a month. To some bases are, 60 flights a month. So, it can be busy. When I was out in Kansas, we did, the fixed wing. And so we were in a plane. That is a lot longer with your patients, because you're not only, you have to fly to an airport that's in the city where you're picking up, get in an ambulance that's going to take you to the hospital, if you're picking up at the hospital, get your patient, drive back to to the airport, load up, fly to the other city, and then repeat it. And then once you're done, then flying back to wherever your base is. And so, we considered a busy day when we were doing, two flights in 24 hours, because you could be gone that entire time, because it could be 6 hours just with one patient.
I never thought about fixed wing planes being used, just because I've always seen helicopters, but that makes sense. And how do they determine when LifeFlight does need to be deployed for an accident? I mean, it's just the first responders are determining that critical care is absolutely needed, and then they call, and then you guys hop on the plane or the helicopter and you get there. Is that how it works?
Yeah, that's normally how it works. I mean, sometimes it's even just by how bad, it sounds, so like if, I always knew that there was a certain area that, say, the car crashes were extremely bad. And so you hear the ones there. And so it doesn't mean that we're necessarily going to, take the patient. So say the ambulance gets out there and deems up, we don't need them. So we just turn around and go back. But it's normally that they determine that they're needed. And it's not just, just for car accidents. I mean, it could be strokes, heart attacks, even, any medical, because I've just flown in areas where it's an hour, to the hospital by ground. And so you do a lot of the medical stuff as well as the trauma, the car accidents. And then you kind of get out into, New Mexico. New Mexico has one trauma hospital in the entire state.
Wow.
And so it's, extremely far to drive. And then you even get into Kansas, whereas I was in Southwest Kansas, all the hospitals, the big hospitals, are on on the east side. And so it could be 3.5 hours by an ambulance to get to a big, trauma hospital. And so that's kind of the things that they'd look at, is that they need to go to a big hospital. The little one's not going to work for them. So, we're coming out and getting them for time. And then even sometimes it's, equipment, skills. A lot of helicopters carry blood products now, so when they need stuff like that.
So you waited, based on what I could see on LinkedIn, quite a while to earn college degrees. Why was that the right choice for you?
I mean, so the military paid for everything for me. I mean, I haven't had to pay anything. And so they paid for my EMT basic, they paid for my paramedic, they paid for my, my firefighting, and they paid for my college degree. And for me, and back then, there really wasn't a degree for paramedics. And that's why I kind of have that very vague healthcare administration, and I'm kind of the person, I'm never going to sit behind a desk and do like administration work. But it was, my time was actually running out to use my GI Bill. And I think it just kind of, worked for me. Nowadays, a lot of the colleges have it to where you work through a degree, getting your EMT basic. I think Owens does it. Start with your EMT basic, and then you finish your paramedic by the end, and it gives you associate's degree in I think it's like applied science or something like that. So it worked for me, because just how life was going, and ultimately it worked out in benefit.
Right. Well, and I think you're a great example of, don't just go get the education to get the education, have a purpose behind it. You did. And, again, having the military pay for it, that's obviously a great Great thing. So you talked a little bit about your certifications. You're a certified ER nurse, flight nurse, transport nurse, pediatric emergency nurse, trauma emergency nurse, flight paramedic, and neonatal pediatric transport. So, like you said, you are covered in everything. Is there one of those that you feel like has been most valuable, or have they all been valuable in their own ways?
I think they've all had their, their value. And a lot of them, it can get you extra money too. Doing the certifications and having that background. But I mean, it helps. Like the emergency room one helps because it's a lot of self-study, and pulling from experience and knowledge to take the test and then pass. And the same kind of goes for like the transport and the flight a lot. And then a lot of them too are required for those positions. Like you get into flight nursing, and they require you to have, they call it an advanced certification within so many years of being hired. It just kind of, it's like an accreditation requirement, for them. And it's really a way of proving that, hey, our people are experienced. Our people know what they're doing. And here, look at all their certifications is a way to look at it.
Now, are a lot of those, like you said, I'm just taking a test, or are they online, or do you have to sit in on a seminar and then do a test? How did you earn most of those?
So a lot of them, has the variety of the options, like that you can, most of them are self-study. There's no like big approved, here, take this class and then take the test. It's a lot of different organizations that kind of come together and like do seminars or like online education, put books together, so they kind of have all the references of here, read this education, or it'll help you with the test. And that's kind of what I did is, I read a lot of the books that they had put out, did some online, classes that they did, because also with nursing, there's all the continuing education hours to keep up on. And so a lot of those organizations then put out their own education. So you do the classes, get the credit for it, and then really pass. And it's, I really felt with the flight nursing, there's so much more because you're not only looking at medical, then they talk about like flight physiology. So you're getting into a little bit of the science, different, like Boyle's law, it's kind of the things that you have to worry about, flying. And so you think of, oh, well, here I'm doing medical stuff, but then I'm having to worry about science stuff. So it's a lot of different stuff. And then they even get into just transport, knowing about, you have to know about weather, altitude, things like that. And so it really helps you not only, medically, but then even just in the profession, because ultimately you're a whole team. While the pilot's doing the flying, you still kind of have to be a little, aware of, what's going on.
Right. And I guess I've never thought about how I'm sure altitude impacts
Mm-hmm.
the treatment that you give, or, I don't know, if you're given a blood transfusion, is that different on ground versus, thousands of feet into the air? And yeah, I guess I've never thought about how you would have to think about all of those different things. If there are people considering going into nursing, flight nursing, etc., what do you think are some characteristics that will help people be successful in that field?
I think it's, having the drive to continually learn, because that's what it is as far as the flight career is, that it's always learning. You're never, you're never going to stop. I mean, it's education nonstop. It's a lot of things to keep up on. It's a lot of certifications, licensure to keep up on. But I mean, it's very, enjoyable. So I guess really having the drive to continually learn, continually better yourself, but also like the people around you. but then also, having the understanding it's not always, blood, guts, and gore. It's not always chaotic. A lot of times it's, you could be just giving the patient, essentially a ride because it's so far to the hospital. They need to get to a place that, say the smaller hospital just cannot treat them, and so it's not always that you're going to be, doing things. And also that it can be hard to get into. I interviewed, 7-8 times before I finally got hired. And, I had all the certifications and then some, that they wanted, but it just happened to be that there was somebody that was more experienced than me. But of course, then once you get in, you're in and you're in forever. And then even if you leave, and come back, you're still in. It's a small community. Somebody always knows, somebody. So
relationships, as always important. All the places you've lived and worked, is there one that you say, man, someday when I retire or whatever, that's the place I'm going to go back to because I loved life there?
I mean, it was every place has its benefits, as far as working and flying. And I mean, it was never fun, while everybody loves like Florida or the hot places, it was never fun, flying in those because the air conditioner always is terrible in the helicopter or plane, and you're sweating, because you have the flight suit on, and it's just, I mean, I like the northern states because you get the cold weather and you get the snow and everything. And, but then even something kind of changing topic here is like you get, especially like with healthcare, is like the complaints are so different from state to state. Like Ohio, you really see a lot of the respiratory and the heart issues. And then you get out kind of like the western side, and you may get more like liver, abdominal, complaints. It's really weird. And I, whether it's just, the style of living or something out
right,
there. But,
right.
I really like, like Ohio and what it has to offer.
Right. As we wrap up, and as you think about all the experiences you've had, both in life and your careers, is there anything that you now know about life and careers that you wish you could go back and tell yourself when you were in high school?
While it's not always about money, they always say that, do something that you enjoy, and like I said earlier, years ago, I thought I was going to do computer animation, but then really found my own passion, of what to do. But like, I wouldn't change anything how I went about doing it, because it kind of gave me, because with the medical field, there is so much to do and learn. And, so then when I did my nursing, is I was in class. And so I did an accelerated bachelor's for my second degree. And there were people that were fresh out of college. They had literally just finished their bachelor's in something else and then jumped right into nursing because they were like, well, I just realized I didn't like what I was doing. And so I'm glad that I went into the military, gave myself, a few years to really kind of decide essentially what I wanted to do, rather than jumping right into college. But then it's the same as you don't have to do college. There's so many options of things to do. And so I'm really kind of glad that the way I went.
Right. Well, I really appreciate you sharing your story. Very, very interesting. You're definitely the first flight nurse I've interviewed. So that's very interesting to hear about that aspect of your career. So I appreciate it. Good luck as you continue on, and thank you for all that you do to protect and help people.
Thank you.
Thank you for making the Joust About Careers podcast part of your day. I hope you learned valuable information from this career story. And to be sure you don't miss upcoming episodes, please click subscribe on YouTube or your favorite podcast platform so you'll know when the next episode is released. Thank you for spending a portion of your day with me. And as always, come back next week to learn even more just about careers.